Hello Avengers, today I'm gonna give you a guide on some of the basics on how to make cool photos on photo mode on the game. This is just gonna be some tips for you to follow so you can make your photos be better, focusing on certain angles, certain lighting, and hope that I can inspire you to make more cool photos in the game. So we're starting off here. I want to show you some dark environment while also showing you how to take shots of action. So in this particular moment you can see that enemies are spawning, and what's happening right now? That spawning is causing lighting. This was a very dark room, but with the spawning effect, now it's a bit more lighted, and that's one of the key things that you want to focus on when working on photo mode. Be on alert for lighting. So let's begin with the basics on what you can do with the photo mode. You can go with a free camera or the orbit camera. The orbit camera just circles around your character, but it doesn't give you the freedom to explore more apart from those angles. So usually I recommend that you stay with the free camera. So now we're just gonna line this up, and one of the big key things is the depth of field. If you want to highlight your character, turning on the depth of field is very important. As you can see, now all the details is focused on Cap. You don't see in high detail all the noise on the background. Instead, you're making your subject be highlighted, and that's the most key important thing when taking shots of the Avengers themselves in these environments. Because sometimes the environment may not be the most interesting or it just has too much detail. But when you do this, you create an action look that really makes the character pop out. I chose this angle because the teleporting lighting is making Cap pop out. If I use Cap on another angle, like this one right here, he's much more darker because the background is also darker and he gets a bit lost in the back. However, when you have a lighted background, it creates a silhouette effect, so you can see the character just pop out of the environment. So we're gonna try some bit of action. Now here's something I don't recommend when taking your pictures. When you have these glowing effects on you, if you like them, it's absolutely fine. But for my personal preference, I feel like they tend to remove you from the character. Now, always make sure to pay attention to your action in your combat. Learn what's the combat like and explore all the angles possible of that action scene. Taking this moment for example. Now, action can be complicated because sometimes it has a blurry effect, so you have to move around your camera to find what's the best perspective here. So right now we're just focusing on finding our best angle. And again, the depth of field. Right now, there was a lot of detail in that background, but now, with the depth of field blurring everything else, we're absolutely highlighting and making the action of Cap hitting his shield pop out, apart from all the effects involved on it. In this particular instance, for action, the key thing is always timing. Always try to pause at the right time and keep on trying until you get the exact second that you want the action. And be sure to zoom in and zoom out of shots so you can see more details. Sometimes you like it more close, other times you can get a zoom out angle where you can see details on the floor like you can see right here. You can also move around the camera and explore what else is going on in the scene. These aim drones right here that you can take shots of. You can also analyze the details of the aim robots knocked down by your shield, or you can also explore what your other companions are doing. In this case, they're a little too far to really do too much with them, so we're just gonna focus on the Cap. So I'm gonna try to angle myself here and find the best spot that makes me happy. With the active visibility, it helps you decide if there's anything interfering in your environment, like if your companions are in the way. And then with the filters, you can explore which lighting that you like more. Usually I try to keep the same lighting of the game, but sometimes you may have another preference, like if you want a black and white, or you wanted to make it seem like it's more underwater, or some gamma effects, like just any effects that you want to realize that may highlight that character more. But personally, I prefer for this one this very same setting because it's natural effect of doing this attack with Cap. Now we have a situation here where everything's pretty dark. However, these dark moments are very good when you have a lot of special effects. This is why I chose this particular skin of StarTech, because he has a lot of glowing elements. So his eyes are glowing and his star is glowing, and because I blocked that shot from that turret, I have all these particle effects that I just timed perfectly to get this shot in. So while he may be a bit dark, we're focusing on color glows right here, and this is how you explore your color glowing. In this case, I'm removing Hulk as well because he's ruining my shot. And you can always boost up the brightness a little bit if it's a little too dark for you, and then play with filters. The filters are also very good if the environment happens to be too dark. Sometimes the right color change can make that environment or character pop out for you. Just keep exploring, keep pressing your filters, keep zooming in and out, keep checking for angles. Like, I really like this shot more closed up like this, but maybe this angle is something that you like more, like you like the details of the arm here, or maybe you want to go for a full body, focusing with the leg pose, or you want to see his back, try to analyze his shield. Like, there's so many ways you could analyze and take the shot right here. Just always keep in mind the depth of field when doing this exploration, because it always changes depending on the angle that you're on. Here I'm going to show you an example of outside lighting and what to keep in mind. So for example, you have this sun, that's the light source. It's right behind me, so you see that the light is coming from that sun. And when you turn around, you see that my character is well lighted. And then when I give the back to the sun, I'm a bit more darker, it's more shadowy. That's what you always have to keep in mind with light sources. And then you have to decide what exactly you want to do. There is no right or wrong on what you do with the light source. So here's an action moment. As you can see, my Iron Man is pretty well lighted because, again, I'm using the light of the sun that's in my favor. I'm not giving the back to it, so the sun is giving me light. So we're gonna do again the depth of field, never forget it. And now we're gonna play around with the angles of what we can do here. So this, for example, makes for a pretty good action shot where you can see in the distance the robot head, and then you see Iron Man in the pose of just finishing the action. Now it doesn't have to be just this shot, you can also explore and zoom around and maybe make Iron Man the entire focus of the scene. And now with this shot you can see the debris of the robot in the middle of the action, but the sole focus is Tony right now in this shot. You can also explore and see the robot, and you can make a whole shot of just the robot in danger. And as you can see here, yes, this robot has some kind of black blood, and it's something that maybe you never even notice, but when you actually go in photo mode you will notice a lot of interesting details. Now here's a problematic situation where this action is pretty cool, but you have this blur effect all the time. You can still do the shot, but it's always going to be blurry no matter what character you move it to. So that's something you have to always keep in mind when doing action photos, because sometimes the effect is affecting the entire screen of the game and it affects completely your shot. So while we're here, I'm going to talk to you about the rules of the third. This just means about framing your subject. Why is it a thing? Why does it have to be corner left or corner right or center? Because it's the best way to highlight your character. And if specifically you want to just highlight your character, then usually you go with center. But if you want to highlight your character in a certain environment that you would like to focus on, corner it to the left or to the right. So another key important thing is about medium shots, full body shots. If you're doing a medium shot, you gotta be up to the stomach of the picture. You can't do a shot like this where you're showing me half of the legs, because it is not really telling me anything. I can't tell if Iron Man is flying here, and I can't tell what he's meant to express either. It's not close enough, but it's not far enough either. You're cutting me the subject to a point where it's not telling me anything. So when you're zoomed in, you're focusing me on the expression, you're focusing me on the mind of the character. And then when you do this full shot, you're telling me what the character is doing. So in this case, I can see that he's flying. I can see what's going on entirely with the subject. So ultimately, what I mean by this is try to focus on what you want to tell with your image. The other thing is always be on the lookout for shapes. I really like this shape of aim right here. So I'm gonna pause right here. I see that Tony's angled in a way, his view right now on the head. So I think that was a perfect moment to pause it. Depth of field again. And look at how well lighted Tony is on both sides. But mainly, the shape is actually making me pay attention to Tony more. Because the shape on this environment, which in this case is the AIM logo, is telling me here's a subject. So that's another thing that you can do with backgrounds. Make the background tell me this is the subject. This is what I want to tell on this image. So you have here this one very particular cool scene of the underwater Black Widow mission. Here we're gonna play around with an emote, which is another thing that you can definitely recommend to do is play around with the emotes that you got. And then with this scene right here, adjusting a little bit the blur and then adjusting, playing around with some of the filters, I can pretty much create the idea and illusion that he's kinda underwater. Even though he is underwater, but it's not literally underwater, but with some of the filters and playing around, I can give the illusion that he's in fact on the water right now. And this is all thanks to the background helping me make the subject pop out. Another favorite moment here is just going down by the tunnel. You will also notice more circle patterns. And we're gonna again depth of field, playing a bit with it. We're gonna remove the actors on the background. It's only about me. And there you go. He's pretty much in the center. And the tunnel itself, the way the lines are moving, everything's moving toward my subject. Like the tunnel is leading me to Tony in the photo. But maybe you prefer going at center, that's fine as well. I'm just giving you some ideas of how I prefer them myself. But maybe you prefer another thing. Maybe you prefer this other angle. You like to showcase more the water, but you really like the lines that are drawn here. This is also another good shot. There's no such thing as a bad shot itself. It's just your personal preference in terms of angles. I'm just giving you what's important to make your shots stand out more. In this case, using shapes and lighting to make your subjects stand out, and using the special tools that the game has with the depth of field, camera angles, and filters. So I hope this guide inspired you a little bit to play around with your shots. I also recommend checking out other great, very great photographers of this game like Riffian. He does amazing work on this game. A lot of his photos have been featured on the weekly blogs. You can also check him out on Twitter. But there's also very other talented folks you can see featured on the weekly blogs as well. Ultimately, I want to do this because I know some people that really like seeing pictures on photo mode and are always confused on how to start, how to think of a picture. So hopefully this inspires you a little bit to think outside the box. I also recommend other communities that focus on game photography like the Gametographers. A really great team of people that are very supportive and have a lot of streams about game photography in different games, including this one, but they also do other games like Horizon, Cyberpunk, and many more. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this guide and inspires you. See you next time, Avengers!